We had a couple of interesting discussion topics before this, and I want to get into the meat and potatoes of today's stew. So, I've been thinking lately, what are the ways that fighting game content could improve around tour events, and we could have better content in and around tour events? Everything that I'm about to suggest is expensive, probably. It costs money. That's probably the biggest barrier of entry to everything that I'm about to bring up. That being said, I think it's stuff that should be considered and put into the kinds of budget stuff for our streams and broadcasts. You know that when you look at the tournament streams, I think that there's a couple of big issues that we have right now. Our current stream content and stream flow has not changed in so long. The only thing that's changed is now on breaks and shit, we have blast from the past instead of just having ads the whole time and stuff. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that we could do to change that and make the product a lot better. One thing that we can look into, and this is something I did a long time ago, actually, back during KI Cup, you guys might recall, Killer Instinct minis. So during KI Cup way back in the day, they used to have these KI minis. There's a playlist of them on my channel.
Killer Instinct has long and damaging
Look at this.
combos, but they are two-way interactions. After your opponent starts a combo with certain
Combo
attacks,
breakers.
such as a special move, you can combo break by pressing the punch and kick buttons that match the strength of your opponent's attack.
They played these during the
There
KI
are three
Cup to
possible-
teach people about how Killer Instinct works. And then we had some system ones, and then we had 30-second video. How the fuck does Saberwolf work?
Saberwolf is an offensive powerhouse with fantastic ground normals. His forward dash is fast and passes through opponents.
Look at
Coupled
this.
With a dangerous but unsafe high-low mix-up game, Saberwolf is very overwhelming at close range. During Instinct, Saberwolf has increased damage and has access to Feral Cancels, which allow him to cancel his attacks at any time. This is great on both offense and defense. Together, this leads to very high damaging combos, which means Saberwolf can always make a massive comeback.
See this? This is content that was on KI Cup back in 2016. Imagine if during the breaks of CPT event, there's a video like this, 30 seconds. G is an offensive character who snowballs into a massive lead very quickly. G has two main ways of doing this. The first is by getting a hit and leveling up. The second is by activating V-Trigger, right? Like this, it's the same kind of formula. Oh, you guys like Hisako because you're all weebs. Let's say you don't know how Hisako works.
Hisako is a sneaky grappler built around counters. She has two command grabs, one that is short range and incredibly fast, and one that pulls her opponent towards her. If Hisako predicts her opponent's attack, she can counter either high or low and start a combo. She also has a Wrath meter, which decreases every time she swings her Naginata. When Wrath is full, Hisako's attacks are counter hits and her command grabs become more dangerous. During Instinct, her Wrath meter stays full, making her very scary up close.
See? Simple little videos. Through the weekend, you just play through them. And as you watch through them, you learn about the game, right? You just learn about the game, the characters, how they work. But the goal was to make them about 30 seconds of content. And, some are slightly longer, some are slightly shorter. They'll get outdated in each patch, though. This video is still correct today. And this was filmed in 2016 about KI. The information in this doesn't need to be reshot if you keep it general, and if it does need to be reshot, it's probably not a huge chunk of it that needs to change. And not only that, but these 30-second videos for every characters are super useful for the viewer because it tells you where you can find out more information about these characters and what they do. There was no frame data. There's not a single bit of frame data in any of that. Balrog is an offensive character who relies on, setting up counter hits into big damage, whatever it is, right? You just do this very simple version of it. So all of these are scripted out. And the way we would script it is short description of what the character does, what the character's main way of doing stuff is, what their instinct is, summary. So the way I would do this for a Street Fighter character is what they do around in the neutral, how their V system works, if there's something remarkable about it, right? Their V skill, V trigger, and then summary at the end. 30 seconds for all of them. It's much, much better than playing blast from the past matches from Street Fighter 4 or, having the tip. You can block a cross-up by holding the opposite direction on the joystick, right? This is so much more useful for explaining how characters work or explaining how systems work or anything like that. And if you shoot these at the beginning of the year, these will be useful for pretty much the whole time. For me and Infilament to make these, it took a lot of work. It took us probably about a month to shoot and do every single character and a minute and a half video on breaking in the game. It takes a lot of work to script and do these correctly. However, it's something that will be valuable and useful for a year, right? Or even longer, years, if you don't need to change anything. Imagine on a stream break, instead of just playing like the blank screen, this was on here, right? The other thing that could be on here besides something like this would be analysis segments. Why not have me or someone else do some pre-filmed analysis segments where we're like, hey, so this is from 2 weeks ago at this CPT event. Let's check out this sick comeback by Bon Chen and talk about all the little things that he did here to win the match. And we just boom, 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 break it down, like 2-minute segment on that or something. We could have interviews during the breaks as well. Interviews would be something that could be very good in this. You shoot an interview during the 2 hour, there's a 2 hour block that's happening, right? And in this 2 hour block, why not go shoot an interview once every 2 hour block? And then you play that at the end of every 2 hours. So 1 hour, you have a break, you play one of these videos or a couple of these videos. 2 hours on like later, the hour after that, you play an interview. And this isn't something that you can use for every, event, right? But these videos that I'm showing you here, these could be useful on any tournament stream, any CPT stream, anywhere in the world, right? You just play them. Other kinds of content that the tours currently don't have that they could desperately use, shows, built-in content or shows or weekly shows built around the stream. And these don't have to be crazy expensive or anything. The stream show that we did for the TWT recap show, where we would look at these top 8s of whatever TWT event was that weekend. Those were super, I think, useful for recapping stuff that's gone down. Capcom Pro Talk used to happen, right? And now there's no show like that. So if Tekken had a weekly show where they're like, hey, this is the event we covered this week. This is what happened there. This is what's coming up next week. Let's talk about some of the highlights. You just need like Rixta, MYK, like maybe like Spag, whoever, right? Just like a rotation of like a few people to talk about what happened this week. Yeah, Rip and I used to do the recap show, and it had no support. It never got tweeted out. It never got advertised. It never got like, they didn't do anything with it. And same thing for CPT, right? CPT has nothing like this. Even Capcom Pro Talk was awesome, and it didn't even focus that much on the tour. It was really just like Mike Ross chilling with people, and it was great. It took many, many years for that to build a big audience, but once it did, I think the proof of it was like, look at how sick this could be for the tour, right? Talking about the leaderboards, talking about how great this player is, or doing this and upcoming events and keeping you guys updated, utilizing that channel that they've already built. Because the FGC is so fragmented in how our tournaments and events are, having one place to go look for this game to have this highlight would be fantastic. Another thing to improve streams, besides this other content and stuff, is that Capcom, every event, makes a top 5 moments video. Why isn't that played during the break instead of always just blast from the past stuff? They already cut together this top 5 moments. Why aren't these played instead, right? Doesn't that seem like a good use of the time instead of, because it catches you up on the rest of the tour rather than just like, okay, well, here's a match between Tokido and Fudo back in Canada Cup. Even during the breaks, having an analysis segment on site, right? Like that was something that people asked for forever, or interviews. To be honest, I don't think the FGC really has very good live interviewers. We don't really have that many good live interviewers. So even if interviews is something that we're not particularly good at, right? That's something that someone could become good at by the tour doing it for all these events. I don't think any of our interviewers are really that good at doing interviews. You guys have suggested lots of people. I don't think any of them are very good interviewers, including myself. I don't think I'm a very good interviewer either. Yeah, nobody has a lot of practice. That's one of the main reasons, right? We don't really do interview a lot. So when we used to do ESL King of the Hill, I knew I was a bad interviewer, but I would have to interview people every week. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try to get better at it. And I thought I started as horrible. And then I got to be okay. And that was with practice, right? We have a few people that could be good, but they just need time. There comes a sort of natural feeling that interviewers have where they know the mood of the person they're interviewing and what kind of questions you can ask them. And it's a combination of preparedness and also recognizing the mood of the interview. It's not just, I need to prep for my interview to ask the perfect questions. It's also, during this live interview, I need to feel whether the question I have to ask is going to be good or bad, or I need to change and go to... After the first question, I have my next question that I planned prepared. Do I go to that, or do I pivot because I can tell the interview is not going the way I expected and focus on this new thing they said is interesting? Do I go to like, oh, well, this is what I was going to ask them if they seemed upset or if they seemed very happy, or, you have to like make that choice live. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that all of our interviews sound like, wow, you just did a great job. You won that match. How are you feeling? All right, so up next, you're going to be playing up against Tokido. How do you feel about playing Tokido? All right, well, any final words you want to say to everybody on the stream who's watching, who's a fan? All right, back to you guys. You could have somebody who's a fighting game commentator like me. I could do that, and I have plenty of practice on camera and stuff. It would just be fine. But the problem is it's like, it's the most generic form of an interview you can do. But actually being an excellent interviewer is very different. So that's why I'm suggesting pre-canned content that I think would be better. I'm like, none of these interviewers are super practiced and experienced. And you guys are like, what about this guy? I'm like, none of us are super practiced and experienced. What about this guy? None of us are. Examples of excellent interviews outside of fighting games. I love Casey's interviews for TI. Golden Boy, Shocks. Yeah, I like Shocks' interviews. You have to really focus on actually being an excellent interviewer and know the context and the situation and the story really well. It's not enough to just sort of know the game. Yeah, so that's the thing I was thinking of. Anyway, this is all a discussion about improving fighting game content on streams. So that's just some other stuff that I think could come up. All right, listen, chat room. Before you type another thing in the chat room telling me how to do an interview or anybody else how to do an interview, the point of this is that interviews are not that simple. There's lots of diverse strategies and ways about doing this, but they don't always work. And knowing which questions to ask which person and knowing what to do when they give you a bad response and knowing all that kind of stuff, that takes time and effort and experience, right? And that's when we need someone who is a professional. And the professional only shows up if they have, experience and time and effort doing this.